Hello, welcome pen friends. I'm back with another ink profile, and today we're doing this beautiful Diamine 150th anniversary Regency Blue. It's what a lot of people, I think, refer to as blurple, where it's blue, but it's also purple. So, and it does kind of fool us as we go along. We'll see that. I started out as usual right here in the Tomoe River 68 GSM paper in the Bond Travel Gear notebook that I've been using. So, and everything is right here, including the water test, which showed that it's very typical, and it all washed away with just maybe, let me hold that up, just maybe a little bit of residue from the ink, and that's it. So it's very typical. And then in the chromatography, that was interesting too. It just flew right up the strip. What it was going to move, it moved right away. It's very saturated ink. So it left behind this kind of red and the dark, kind of almost purple there. So let's see here. Availability on this is still pretty good. There are places that are sold out, like Goulet pens was sold out of the bottle. So I started to write something there, I don't know. But when you can find it, it's $15 to $16 for 40 mils. I found it at Anderson Pens, a sample for $1.75 of the 3 mil. And then I found it available also at Gold Spot and Jet Pens. So look around at your places that you like to order. And that's just here in the US. I'm sure you can get it cheaper in the UK and because it's right where it's being made. So okay, in the broad nib, this was all in the broad nib, 37 seconds to dry. I don't know, I guess I kept looking at it to see. You can almost tell by the paper what it looks like, whether it's going to smear. So, but it didn't at 37 seconds. And then in the Goulet stub nib, the 1.5, it was the same thing. Pretty close anyway, because it was still smearing at 30, and then 37 it was dry. I thought it looked really nice in that. It does appear dark. Let's see if we can, when I hold it up, we may get more of the blue showing, but it does appear very, very dark today. The lighting is much better this morning, but yesterday I just couldn't even do this. And then in the fine nib, let's see, move it a little bit, 25 seconds to dry. It did darken. It looks quite a bit darker in here. And let's see, first impressions. Yeah, it's just a very dark ink. It's pretty. It seemed, I thought it took a while to dry, but then when I really got to think about it, this is Tomoe River paper, and we're going to see some variety on the other papers. So we're looking at approximately 39 cents a mil here in the US. So it's a really affordable ink for us. And this sample, thank you very much to pen friend Nancy for sending this generous sample of the ink. So I've been enjoying it, and there was a request for this, and so I thought I'd go ahead and do it. Let me hold this up so we can see the, gee, that's either the cat or me. It had a red kind of a halo, and it just showed its sheen, but let's see if I can really show that to you or not. It's hard to do, but I thought it was really pretty. And this is where, well, gee, water everywhere. Where it really shows its purpleness is in this splatter too, one of the places. Okay, so let's look at the Rhodia. We got several ink, paper samples to look at. Rhodia 80 GSM dot grid. Okay, here we are with the broad nib. Oh, I'm miscalculating because I've got it zoomed in. There was a mix-up there, probably a kitten distraction, and then 25 seconds it was dry, 20 it was still smearing, so that made sense. Just nice blue on, nice dark blue on this Rhodia. This is a nice crisp white paper and showed up really good. And then in the stub, 30 seconds to dry. It shows off a little more of its color in this because you've got that wider nib, and that looked pretty good. Not a whole lot of shading, just a light bit of shading here and there. And then in the fine nib, you lose all the shading, and it's just kind of dark. It almost looks black, really, to my eye, as well as through the camera. 15 seconds to dry. And I keep noting that it's very saturated. I actually wanted to keep this, I wanted to keep this one available so we could kind of line them up and maybe do a little less of the zooming in. Okay, so let's move over to CVS Caliber paper. This is a very affordable paper. I got the tab in the right place, but my fingers are sticking. Oh, I got a little carried away with the paintbrush, but you could see a little bit of red edging there. Well, I can, and it's funny that I would think you'd be able to, but I can't really show it. Here it is in the broad nib, 30 seconds to dry. It definitely looks blue on this paper. This paper has been known to kind of tone down the ink color just a little bit, where it looks a little bit blacker, like on the Tomoe River paper. It lightened it a little on here. Not by a whole lot, but I think you can see that. And in the stub nib, 30 seconds to dry. So it wasn't quite as long on this paper as it was on the Tomoe River paper. It felt, let's see, I put okay on this paper just barely. To me, that means it didn't drag and it wasn't super dry on this paper. But it was right at the edge where I'd start complaining about it. So it wasn't the best ink for this paper other than the broad nib. That was okay. In the fine nib, 20 seconds to dry, and it's quite dark, but not as dark as the Tomoe River paper. Maybe comparable a little bit with the Rhodia. Okay, I went ahead and did this on the Georgia Pacific 20-pound copy paper, just for those who need to deal with that kind of paper. Here it is. We see a lot of feathering in the broad nib, and I'll show you the back in a minute, but it did bleed through with every single nib. It just was terrible for that, but it's so saturated. It's a very dark ink, and I think that's what's going on, partially. 7 seconds to dry. That's pretty incredible. And then in the stub, feathering and bleeding where it was an issue, were issues. 10 seconds to dry. You know, it's you can write on it with this, but you even get feathering with the fine nib. And again, it's darker, but let's see, how does it compare? Yeah, it's just dark in that nib, that's all. You lose your being able to say this is a blue. I can tell this is a blue. Okay, so let's look at the back. Definitely a lot of bleed through in all three nibs, going from broad, stub, fine nib. There's quite a bit. That's not all just ghosting. There's a lot of seepage and bleeding through. So I wouldn't be real happy with it on copy paper. Okay, so let's look on the back of the CVS. And here, this is hardy paper. We only see ghosting and there's no bleed through. So that's wonderful. Okay, let's look on the back of the Rhodia. This is our, our average or medium paper, really, of what we're seeing here today. No bleed through, except for where I went heavy and it seeped through just a little. And that's just that little tile sample just to see the color, sort of. Can't really see the color right there. Huh, the camera's doing that, making it look a little darker. But it was really good on Rhodia. Okay, and let's make sure that's dry. Turn it over. Okay, so we've got a lot of ghosting, which is normal with Tomoe River paper, but that's where we're at. No real problems. I did want to show you something while we have this book still out. I went back to my old ink journal. This ink reminds me a lot of Ferris Wheel Press Tanzanite Sky. So I wanted to look at them and sort of compare, let's see. So I used to do these differently, but you can see that your inner component is very similar, but there's a lot more blue going on. So there's one difference, and there is a difference. They're not exactly the same. And then we're looking at two different color papers. But really, I've written a lot with this Tanzanite Sky, and there's just so much similarity. Well, there we have it on the same paper. This is Tomoe River paper, cream colored, and this is white, but the splatter and so forth. Didn't get quite as much of a red sheen, but it's there. There's a little bit. So I felt like that was a comparable ink, and these are now being sold in the United States, so it's not quite as hard for us to get them from Canada anymore. So I wanted to mention that. Okay, so now let's look at a comparison panel of inks. Let's see. Oop, oh, everything is everywhere today. Oh, well, you can see our ink of the day real good, but I think we might want to see everything that there is here. Let's try that. Okay, so ink of the day is right in the middle, and it's crooked. Diamine 150th Anniversary Regency Blue. And it does just appear to me to be a blue-purple. And I guess we get to kind of see how that works. Now, right next to it is Ferris Wheel Press Tanzanite Sky, which comes across here a lot more purple. But coming out of the nib, they really have a lot of similarity, I felt. Now, Ferris Wheel Press, to me, is much wetter. It runs really wet out of all the nibs, and so does Regency Blue. There's no problem with flow, but it just isn't the same feel. So between the two of these, this would be the wetter ink. Then I haven't yet experimented too much with Diamine Scribble Purple. That's a new sample that was sent to me by a pen friend. So that's got like gold sheen. So that's way different. And this tends to have red sheen, but it's not showing up really good right here. It's so dark it hides itself. Now I've messed it up. Oh well. I don't think there's any getting this straight because it changes. It changes. Lamy Crystal Azurite. It made me think of that, even though this is far more purple. Oh my goodness. Just so crooked. I was having trouble really finding anything in my ink collection that really looks like Regency Blue. It's pretty unique, but I did find a few, and I wanted to see how Diamine Oxford Blue, because I have a bottle that I'm finishing of that, and that's a good navy blue with a lot of red sheen. It's dark. It's a lot darker coming out of nib than it looks here, and yet it doesn't quite rival Regency Blue. And then we have the much brighter Three Oysters Min Cobalt. But I really like the complexity of that Three Oysters ink and the fact that it has all that red sheen. It's really pretty. It's not as dark, that's all. Or that's one of the differences anyway. So Happy Accident Lilac, that's from Straits Pen Honest Ink. Now that is really neat. I think they're from Singapore. I hope I'm not making a mistake. But isn't that gorgeous? And I really love how their inks perform. There is a lot of similarity there, but it's not as dark coming out of a nib. So that's another option for you. And I think Lemur ink still carries those if they're not out of stock. So that's another option. Robert Oster Deep Purple made the panel. It's so dark that it kind of reminded me, coming out of a nib, of Regency Blue. It's so funny because Tanzanite Sky, when I look at that, I really see blue, but then right now I see purple, and part of that is the camera, but not all of it. It definitely is another one of those inks that fools me. Okay, I've got a bunch of blue inks here. It's too many probably, but these were the ones I wanted to see side by side with Regency Blue, so I thought you might too. Kaweco Midnight Blue, which is dark but nowhere near as dark as Regency Blue. It just really doesn't compare, but we're going to just kind of see where they fall. Pelican Edelstein Tanzanite. That's another really pretty blue-black, and it's nice and dark, but it's not like Regency Blue. Okay, Diamine Skull and Roses. I've got a whole series of these kind of bright blues with lots of red sheen to show you, even though, of course, we're in a different ballpark, but I thought that might help. And also some of these, like Blue Blood, I haven't done yet. I want to profile this one, Vinta Inks Blue Blood. That's just crazy red sheen and that dark but really bright blue. And here's another one of those. This is, I think, a Germany exclusive, if I'm not mistaken. Diamine, I'm not going to pronounce it. I can't do it justice. But it's got that red sheen, and it's the bright. Got a whole series of them. Here's another one. I think I've done this one already. Diamine Cult Pens Maureen with lots of red sheen and bright blue, kind of dark blue. Oh, here's one. Organic Studios Nitrogen, if you're familiar with that. It's a long way from today's ink, but quite fascinating. And then here's a couple just regular blues that I like to compare everything with. A Diamine Blue Velvet, bright blue with a little bit of red sheen, quite a bit less than the last 5 I showed you. Monteverde Horizon Blue, which is just plain bright and cheery and way out of the ballpark. Krishna Moonview. Now this interesting, I went to get this one specifically, but we are in a whole different planet there. And then a couple purples, because since we're mixing in here. Diamine Bilberry is nice and dark, and it's got more purple in it. And then Monteverde Sapphire, which is purple. There we go. Okay, so that was probably thoroughly confusing, but at least you get to see it beside several inks. I wish I had a few more. There are some that I don't have. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because I really don't have any business with one single additional ink sample until I profile like 100 more inks at least. So, but what I mean is to show you, I'm aware there are a few more out there that probably may come in a little closer. But this was what I had on hand. So let's see, what did I think of the ink? Oh, I only have one more page in this pen thing ink swatch plot log. So here we go. This was in the broad nib that I wrote it, and I wrote it's very saturated. And it does kind of feather on this paper a little. I hope I can show that. Let's see. I can see it with my eyes. It's not serious feathering, but there is some. And this was the last of the writing, so this was not an issue of just being inked up and over saturated feed. It wasn't that at all. So it's a aggressive saturation in this ink, which is good. It's very good if you like that. And my mom does. She likes a nice ink you can really read. So saturation was way up there. Like I gave it a 9. Flow was really good and average. Good, not great, and not bad by any means. So I gave it a 5. The shading was kind of low. I was toying with a 3 there. But I could get shading on certain papers a little bit. Bleeding, yes, okay, I experienced that on the Leuchtturm, and I forgot to show you. Let's do it right now, because if I promise to, I'll forget. Okay, so I did just a little bit of writing in the Leuchtturm that I'm running kind of low on. So this is the Leuchtturm 1917 dot grid paper, and I just put each one of the nibs through a quick test, and all 3 bled through. I was surprised, actually, that it was that much bleed through. But it's saturated. It's very saturated, and it just it bled through. That's all. So I had to give it a 3 or so. You know, it bleeds, but not with most of our papers, and not with Rhodia. And Rhodia would be the gold standard for right in the middle. It's not Tomoe River paper, and it's not Clairefontaine, but it's almost so. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Feathering. We experienced that on the copy paper, and I showed you that. So it did feather on the copy paper, but I hate to even give it I wrote that in pencil. And we got a little bit of feathering on the Hewitt-Packard, but nowhere else. So dry time, okay, so dry time, if it was average, would be 5. To me, I don't like a long dry time, so I gave it lower than average, where that's confusing, isn't it? It was medium to long dry time, to me. Sheen was really nice, 6. I could see that on several of the letters. You'll need a sample, because it's very hard to really show that. But I was getting sheen on Tomoe River paper. I was even getting some on the Rhodia there. But it doesn't take over, so that's nice too. No halo except for on that splatter. Let's see. Of course, we get that nice outline halo right here, but that was the only place that I really saw it. Other than that, I would call it sheen. Overall, I gave it a 7. It's a very nice ink. It's it's not. Let's see. It's for you if you really like a super saturated ink, I would say, and there may be other factors too. So let's try the Nick Stewart technique. I was really excited to do that and see what happens, see if we get any good separation. I'm just going to use the 1 ink. I've got actually a babysitter for the kitten right now. Manuel is holding the kitten because, oh my goodness, it's just a wild kingdom right now. But that's okay. I noticed there were several times during the day when he was really calm, the cat was, so. Okay, got my pens, my main paintbrush. We'll keep it simple here. And we'll just see what happens. Whoops. Okay, there's that. I don't know. It sounds like there's a phone ringing, but I don't know. Okay. Far, far away in the background. Ooh, that's pretty. Now we see blue. Isn't that something? Up to this point, I've seen more dark, dark blue, purple, but as soon as it gets in the water. Huh. Cool. I think we're going to see some nice chromatography coming through. I can see pink already coming out. I had meant to use this, kind of create the line here. Not too late, I guess. Ah, that's nice. Can you see that? Let's see. Put it a little closer for you. Yeah, that's really pretty. I can see like shadows that are appearing that I really kind of don't want to mess with because it's so cute. We'll let that settle a little and do the lower part. I remember that Tanzanite Sky was really drastic too with this. Oops. Oh, I opened a portal. I didn't mean to do that. That was an accident. I've been finding myself kind of moving too fast because everything I do, I have to kind of move fast to get it done before the kitten gets like right in the middle of it. But in the morning, all of the cats kind of socialized together. So earlier, it was really cool. They were doing really well together. Okay, let's bring in the Lamy fine nib for a few details. I have to remember that it'll fill in, it'll kind of dry together. That's nice. I do love how with one ink we're getting at least 3 different shades. We're getting pink, a little turquoise kind of color coming out, and then we're our nice purple, and even, well, 4 because we're getting some really dark too. That's nice. It's otherworldly. Let's see what's going on down here. That's nice. Ooh, I like that. I don't know what it is, but it's pretty. Okay, I'm already here. Might as well put it. Diamine 150th. Regency Blue. This is really pretty. Okay, so if you have any questions that I might be able to answer, since I know I went through lots of blues, but your blue might not have been one of them. It's something that you wanted to see, might not have been there because I have so many blues. Just let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to answer that. But what do you think of this? I think it's really, really pretty. I can see why it was chosen for one of their anniversary inks. It's quite unique and pretty. So I will see you on the next video. I'm actually working on a video right now where I'm revisiting my Pilot Vanishing Point after almost 2 years with the pen. And there's some interesting thoughts on that. So I'll see you real soon with that. And I hope you're having a great day. Bye for now.